Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positive vibes here on the show, and with me today, I've got a very special guest. He is a wrestler and trainer at the Texas Wrestling Academy. Pleased to welcome the one and only Rudy Gonzalez to the show. Welcome, Rudy, to Wrestling with Heart.
How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, you grew up in San Antonio, Texas. Tell me about your childhood and upbringing.
Sure, man. I've lived here all my life. Uh, my dad worked as a structural engineer, civil service. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We weren't poor growing up. We weren't rich either. But I mean, we made, my dad made enough money, took care of us. We never starved or nothing like that. Um, just stuff normal kids do. I got into little league football and I got into track and baseball, and I hated baseball. I was pretty good at track and I was pretty good in football, and went to a private school, except for 1 year of my education, but mainly went to a Catholic school. So and that was cool. The 1 year I went to the I went through the public school system. Um, that sucked, and it was a different environment stuff. And then um, I have three other brothers and a sister, but once I got older and I started making my own decisions. My parents were like every other parent; they want the best for their son and what have you. And I decided to get into pro wrestling, and so not out of anything other than my dad just wanted to teach me a lesson. Once I told him that I was going to get into the wrestling business, um, he said, "Okay, you got to move out," and so I did. And uh, I struggled like every other wrestling guy you'll ever talk to. In the beginning of their career, they struggled, and I went in through the Southwest Wrestling promotion, and when I talked to Joe Blanchard about getting into the wrestling business, he gave me every doom and gloom story. You're going to starve. You're not going to have any stable relationships. You're going to miss anniversaries, birthdays, stuff like that. You're not going to have a real home. You're going to move all the time, and for the most part, he was right. And it was tough, but being hard headed like I am, I just stuck it out. And one thing led to another, which led to another, which led to another, and 40 years later, here I am. You know,
Yeah, still making it. Were you a fan growing up?
no, I wasn't. My dad took me. I talked to somebody about this the other day. Like I run the Texas Wrestling Academy, I run a wrestling school,
Hmm.
and all the kids that come through the school are all fans of Goldberg, Sting, Undertaker, HBK, da 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 da. And I wasn't. My dad took me to a couple of wrestling shows when I was younger, and uh, just didn't appeal to me. I Wrestling was the furthest thing from my mind. Um, Growing up, I was going to be a high school football coach, and I had the whole thing planned out. I was going to go to college, get a degree in physical education, learn. As I was growing up, I listened to my coaches and stuff like that, and they all had pretty much the same mindset. Uh, Suck it up and whatever,
Hmm.
and uh, learning plays and offensive schemes and stuff like that. And then so that's what I want to do when I grew up. And here I am older and I'm still a coach, but just not in football. I got into wrestling.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like you had the passion for athletics and the training process, like you had just described a bit ago. It was doom and gloom. It was hard to break in,
Sure,
tough. What was it
sure.
like for you starting out?
So again, I broke during the time when that kayfabe thing was really big.
Hmm.
So in the beginning, a lot of the wrestling guys,
Hmm.
I'm not going to say they rejected me, but they just made it hard, and not really hard where anything physical. It was just ignoring me or uh giving me the cold shoulder on stuff and making me really feel like I'm not part of the group, which I wasn't. I heard kayfabe a lot when I walked around guys, and I never knew what that meant. Um, but again, I stuck it out, and guys saw that, and so slowly but surely they started like warming up to me, and I remember like after maybe I'd been with the company for maybe a month, may have been a little bit less. I was sitting in we had set the ring up, and we're in like a little bar. It wasn't a bar, it was like a like a rodeo arena some type.
Yeah.
And so Gino Hernandez walks up, and I see him in the corner of my eye, and so I'm like, this dude never talks to me, so I'm just gonna sit here, mind my own business. And so he sits next to me, puts his hand on my knee, and he says, "What's up?" And that was he. Gino was the first person to open up and acknowledge me. You know what I mean? Like, hey, how's it going? That actually wanted to know me. And so I'm like, hey, nothing much. He goes, how, was it hard putting the ring up? And I was like, not really, And he was like, yeah, I guess he used to put the ring up for Paul Bosch years ago with Tom Pritchard.
Mhm.
So he was like, yeah, I remember we used to do this and this, and you got to do this correctly, otherwise this ain't going to be tight enough or whatever. And we talked for a little while, and then after that, slowly but surely, guys started coming up and you know starting discussion with me.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of camaraderie in the wrestling business. You don't really hear as much about it as the negative stuff, and we always try to strive for the positive stuff to talk about here on the podcast. But
Sure.
definitely, once you started getting into it and you start meeting everyone, I mean, you had to have spent a lot of time on the road with a lot of these guys, getting to know them.
So back in the day, you had to do this thing called pay your dues. So part of my paying my dues was driving guys around, and I didn't care. I didn't mind it. So uh, Joe Blanchard would give me the keys to his car and go to the airport to pick up Carlos Colon, or Randy Savage came in one time. Tommy Rich came in, and so the only thing was that I really didn't know who these guys were. Um, so like uh, we didn't have we had cable, um, but I couldn't afford it, so I didn't have cable. But when you go to the magazine, when you go to the grocery stores or the magazine rack, so I'd make it a habit to stop at the magazine rack and look up, Pro Wrestling Illustrated or whatever the magazines were at the time, and try and look at, find these guys and read little stories on them, which were all, uh, kayfabe stories, I guess you could say. Um, and so I learned about them, and I guess in the phone calls that these guys would make back and forth, they, whoever, Joe Blanchard, whoever made the arrangements would say, this guy Rudy's going to pick you up. He's green as, he's green as shit. You don't know anything. So watch what you say around him. So a lot of the guys would get in the car and just sit there. But like guys like Carlos, like Tommy Rich, they would open up right away and, hey, how's it going, brother? And, that type of stuff. And so, I mean, but you know what? I would rather I would rather have grown up that way than sit there and say, hey man, hey Tommy Rich, oh my God, I can't believe, because one, that wasn't me, but two, also, you just kind of like, to me, it's kind of like taking a step backwards. I mean, we're all buddies and stuff. We're all, like you said, like a like a little brotherhood and stuff.
Hmm.
I don't never go to my brother and say, hey man, I'm glad I'm eating breakfast with you. That type. It's we're all one and the same. At the same level. Even though I was just starting. I'm one of those guys.
Sure.
And as long as I treat them with respect, they treat me with respect. And I was never bullied by anybody. I was always treated fairly. I was always treated, like I should be treated, like a green guy that was just learning the ropes.
And you got better. You started improving and eventually started wrestling, having matches. Who are some of your favorite opponents to work with over the course of your career?
So back when I started, I was just happy to get in the ring with anybody. Um, so again, back in the day, back when I was a kid, there was like a group of 10 of us that would train in the ring in the afternoons and stuff. Some of the guys would show up like Chavo, Manny Fernandez, Tony Falk, Bobby Fulton. Some of the guys would Eric Embry was one that would be there all Ken Timms. Um, and so that's how they would judge you is they would they'd get in the ring with you and do stuff or whatever. And so if there was an opening, then someone would say, hey, if you're not busy Thursday, we could use you, and so that's how I got work. So I was doing that, and my first match was my job on Monday nights. We would do TV on Mondays, so my job was to ring the bell, and so 7:45, man, the match started at 8 o'clock, I believe. So 7:45 or so, I'm standing there by the ring, getting ready to ring the bell, and Al Perez walks up to me and he says, hey, what size shoes you got? And I'm like, I wear 10 and a half. And he says, what size shorts do you wear? And I said, medium. He goes, come on, let's go. And I was like, what? He goes, let's go. So he takes me to the back, the dressing room area, and all the guys are changing and stuff. And so Luke Williams, one of the sheep herders, he asked me what size shoes you wear. And I said 10 and a half. He goes, what size shorts you wear? I said medium. He goes, anybody have a pair of extra medium trunks that Rudy can wear? And I'm thinking to myself, like, what? And then so Bobby Fulton threw a pair of wrestling trunks at me. And then he said, anybody have an extra pair of wrestling boots, size 10 and a half that Rudy can wear? And so Eric Embry gave me a pair of extra wrestling boots he had. And he says, here, put them on. And I was like, well, he's like, go put them on. So I went to the side, put everything on, and everything happened just so fast. It was like I had my stuff on. And then Luke says, you work, me and a guy named Manuel Villalobos. He goes, you and Manny are working with me and Butch. We're going to go about 4 minutes. We're going to go home, and I'm like, all right, you know. And so we did my first match was a TV match, and there are times when I think about it, and it was about 4 minutes or so, 5 minutes, but it felt like it was 20. And there's other times I feel like it was like 30 seconds. It was just,
Hmm.
uh, you know, but that told me that I was moving up the ladder, so to speak, and they trusted me enough to put me on TV of all things. And the way the match was structured, give me an opportunity to make a comeback and fire up on those guys and what have you. And so then, and at the time, um, there were a bunch of guys on the crew that were very, very good also. And so part of my upbringing was getting in, being the first match of some of the house shows, the spot shows, and maybe my name wasn't on the flyer, but they would always be like plus one extra match, and that was me. And so I'd get in the ring with, it was one of the older guys that needed they needed to work, because they have bill to pay, but I needed to work because I need experience. So I think it's like the guys were like, "Hey, I'll work with him." Hey, we got Rudy on here. Who wants to? And somebody would say, "I'll work." So I worked with Ken Timms a lot. Good dude, man. He was an older guy. He was at the time he was partnered with Eric Embry as the Fabulous Blondes, and then we would go in the dressing room, and back then we had separate dressing rooms. So maybe he'd say he'd send a message through the referee to me like, meet me at the ring 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, which was go, meet, we're going to work out the next morning. And then he would go over, all right, remember when you did this, this, and this? Don't do that again. Do this differently. Do that differently. Eric Embry was a good dude to work with. Chavo Guerrero was a good dude to work with. Tony Falk. There was a guy named Bill Howard. The whole crew, man, they were all, I never had a match with Manny Fernandez, but Manny was like, he took me under his wing and he didn't mince words. You effed up on this, don't do it again, and this looks stupid, and but I learned a lot from him. Uh, Tully would make comments, in his Tully Blanchard way. No one ever bullied me or if they gave me something that was negative, I didn't feel bad about it because you're taught if they don't tell you anything, you have an issue. If guys tell you something, that's because they care. And so whenever guys gave me critiques and stuff, I never took it like, oh my god, this guy hates me. It was a learning deal. So I mean, I enjoyed working with all those guys, and then like the lower level guys, like the guys that were with me. Uh, Dusty Wolf was always a good guy to work with to get in the ring with. Ken Johnson, another guy. They had Dusty and Ken had a couple of years over me, but they were always fun to work with. Uh, and then as the years went by, I got to work with Larry Zabisco. Man, he was a he was great. And then I got to work wrestle with Black Bart, another good guy. And then a different um, and I just talked to Bobby Fish about this morning. A different type of because when I worked with those guys and stuff, it was like I had if they said I had a good match, that was great. A different type of fulfillment that I got was when I started training the guys for Shawn Michaels wrestling school,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get in the ring with Brian Danielson or Brian Kendrick or Lance Cade or Ruben Cruz or any of the guy Matt Bentley, any of the guys that I trained, and I would get in the ring with them. And those guys, now I'm not saying because they were my guys, I'm saying it because they actually did well, and being able to get in the ring with them and and not have to worry about this guy's going to break my neck. He's inexperienced. I, I, I don't want to I don't want this to come off as being as sounding cocky or nothing, but the guys that I trained were very good talent, and I know that because I got in the ring with them, and I never had to like, oh my god, this guy's screwing up. It was yes, they were inexperienced, but they still knew what they had a good idea of what they were doing, and so that was, and then to have Shawn walk up and say, hey, you did a good job. That's a whole different ball game
That's
of you know uh enjoyment, I guess you
yeah,
could
it's
say.
it's the icing on the cake because Shawn Michaels is like one of the biggest superstars in professional wrestling. To
Right.
to be able to work with him and work with you, I mean, that's a heck of an accomplishment.
And it's funny because they were always Sean was so going into the wrestling academy, Sean was wrestling academy. Sean was whatever you saw on TV never existed at the gym. Completely different guy. And there were times when I had to like just remind myself this is like one of the world's greatest talents in all of wrestling. And I mean he was just so when he gave a compliment to me or whoever, it was sometimes I take it like, hey, thanks, Sean. And then other times I would like, wow, you know. And even today, like I'll go to the performance center and we'll sit and talk and he'll and I don't think he's blowing smoke up my rear or anything. I think he's again not being cocky or nothing or whatever, but I just think he's being honest. He's like your training method is great and you would be a great fit here and I appreciate everything you do and you did a great job with the school. I want you to do the same thing here. And so and I walk off like, wow, the not only one of the one of the greatest performers in our business, but now one of the head guys of the company is is saying this. So I mean there's a lot of different guys that I enjoyed getting in the ring with, but I guess it, uh, you know, long story short, I guess to put it all in a nutshell, the guys that I trained and was able to get in the ring with, and then watch them grow later on, and know that I laid the foundation down for them. Those were my best, my most fun guys or whatever to work with, to get in the ring with.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely sounds rewarding and fulfilling to see because those were your kids essentially.
Exact,
You helped them,
exactly.
get to the level of where they ended up being, and they became a lot of them became champions, soon to be Hall of Famers.
Right.
List could go on and on, but man, that is awesome. And to go back to the Performance Center with Shawn Michaels in NXT and what he's been able to do, it's just it's phenomenal. It
Right.
really, really is. Let's switch gears and talk about the stuff you've done outside of wrestling. You've done a lot of charity work, a lot of things in your community. What kind of organizations have you partnered up with and charity work that you've been involved with over the years?
Through wrestling, um, I have a platform, and it's like a hot deal today, and it has been for a while. Um, so I use our wrestling events to raise money for, like, we just did a show at the San Antonio Food Bank. And we donate, a portion of the proceeds of our ticket sales to the San Antonio Food Bank. Um, there's a gentleman that was a director there. His name is Louis Guzman, and he informed me, a couple of years ago, for every dollar that we've donated, you can feed 7 meals. You provide, for every dollar we provide, we also provide 7 meals. And he said something like, you so this was like a couple of years ago. This was before the pandemic, actually. He said, so you guys have provided over 3,500 meals for people that are needy, that need food and stuff. And I was like, holy cow. So stuff like that, we help with the food bank. There's a group called uh I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but there's a group in Del Rio, Texas. We donated ticket sale money to them to help them out. We help the Elks Lodge in Harlingen, Texas. Uh, we do events there, and do their concession sales and stuff, and what have you. They get a little bit of money out of us from there. We're helping a group here in San Antonio called the St. Vincent de Paul Knights of Columbus. My wife, Micah, she's a wrestler also. She wrestles for WoW, but she works for a group called. Her actual job is she works for a group called Any Baby Can, and they help families with kids with autism. And so she has a little, information deal or whatever for them at our events. Uh, Most recently, I guess, uh, uh, we there was a shooting in Uvalde, Texas, where a bunch of
Mhm.
elementary kids were killed, and so she was part of getting care packages to the families, helping them get through that situation. Um,
Yeah.
I've got a platform, which is pro wrestling, and I'll use it whenever I can, however I can, to help the next guy out. Um, I don't mind that at all. Like I said, my family didn't grow up. We weren't wealthy, but we did well. We never wanted for food or clothes. And I that's just something that when I see kids or I see adults um, that are struggling, I don't know what that I don't know what that feels like, because I've never experienced that. Even with the wrestling part, I always had the option of calling, my mom, my mother or father, and saying, hey, can you loan me a couple of bucks here and there? But I've never, I've never lived on the street. I've never starved. I've never, you know, and so and it, I feel like uh, I can contribute with what I have. There's a place where I go that um, to run, exercise, do whatever. And there's a lot of homeless people there, a lot of homeless people, and some of them. I mean, you go every day, you see the same faces, and some of them you see once, you never see them again because they're constantly moving.
Mhm.
So there's a few people that I'll stop at the local restaurant and grab some tacos, and the first couple of guys I see, here you go, here you go, here you go, and pass them out. Whatever I can do to help guys out.
Yeah.
Um, any organization, I've had people contact me if I can help out, and if it's if I can, I do. It doesn't matter what it is. I've helped with the Big Brothers and Sisters group here in San Antonio for a couple of years, a while back. I mean, whatever I can help out with.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have a lot of generosity and you're able to find ways through wrestling to give back, especially, with kids, gone through a tough time in school and finding,
Sure.
you know, some of them don't even have parents around. So you got to find,
Yeah.
find ways to help them as best as possible because they're the future, raising kids is hard, and
Right.
especially in this time period. But yeah, I mean, good for you that you're able to do all that and through your wrestling academy too. I mean, when did you start getting involved with being a trainer?
Uh, so years ago, the old school way of training guys was, you know, a guy would say, "Hey," you would say, "Hey, Rudy, can you show me how to wrestle? And I want to get in wrestling business." So we'd go somewhere where a ring was at. I'd make you do a bunch of squats, push-ups, blah 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 blah, whatever, till you were just exhausted, and then I'd come in like the hero of the day and just out wrestle you and do whatever I can um to make you change your mind about getting pro wrestling. So that was like the first um taste of being a trainer. Um, and then Shawn called, and me and Shawn were buddies. We weren't, nothing like that. When he called me, we saw each other in the corridors of the arenas that I would go and do enhancement stuff, whatever. And Shawn was the big wrestling star guy, and we'd walk by each other and, hey, what's up? How's it going? And that was it. Um, when Shawn went to start his school, he hired Jose Lothario and this guy Ken Johnson to run the school, and out of nowhere, and I had honestly I'd quit the business. I had my last straw. I was done. I wasn't happy with the payday that I received, and that's it. I was done. Um, and as luck would have it, that was a Saturday. Tuesday, Shawn called and says, I want you to help me run my school. And so, uh, we talked about it, and this was in October, November of '98. And I said, when are you going to start? And he said, I'm going to start in April of '99 next year. And I said, okay. So I had a job at a warehouse, so I was making some money and stuff doing that. And then when the school started, the day before or a couple of days before the first day of training, we sat down, and Shawn said, "Okay, how are we going to do this?" And we're like, "You're the one. It's your school. It's whatever you want to do." And Shawn was like, "I have no idea. It's just something I want to do. While I'm recovering, but I have no idea how to. Hoping you guys could have some." So Jose, the old school guy, man, he was like, let's just get him in, get him out, get him in, get him out. Let's make him do 1,000 squats and 5,000 push-ups and all this, which was the old school way of doing stuff. And so each kid was paying like I think it was like $4,000 to train at Shawn's school. And so Shawn said something like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "I see a lawsuit coming up." I said, "Why don't we just train guys?" Because when I was breaking in, like I said before, nobody ever abused me. Nobody ever took advantage of me. I never got an accidental elbow in the face or anything. Um, and guys that came in when I came in, same thing. But guys like Ken Timms and these guys would just make them do push-ups, 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 run the ropes, take bumps, squats, rolls. I mean, just until guys on their own, decision, you know what, I'm not made for this, and they would leave. And so I told Shawn that I was like, when I broke in, no one ever did anything like that. Like if you like Hulk Hogan talks about one of his first days, the guy that trained him dropped a knee on his ankle and broke his ankle the first day. And so to show how, to show his persistence, he recovered and he came back and he said, "Hey man, I still paid you that money and I'm still waiting to get trained." So the guy knew, this guy is legit. So he trained him. And so that's what I told Shawn is let's just put him through the drills and the guys that quit, they'll make that decision on their own. The guys that continue, they'll make that decision, and that's we find out who, and Shawn was like, that's a good idea. Because he didn't want to, again, whatever you saw on TV was not the guy at the gym. So Shawn was like, "You're right. I don't want anybody getting hurt here either. So yeah, let's do that." Which didn't make Jose Lothario happy because that was, he had a whole different mindset, and so that meant we really had to train guys. So like if you ever look at some old pictures and stuff, um, there you'll see me in the ring doing stuff because you know you opened your big mouth, so you get in the ring with them. And so Jose and Ken would get in the ring also, but Jose would stand outside the ring with Shawn. Shawn couldn't do anything because he had just got out of surgery.
Yeah, it was when
And
he put the
Jose
knee
was
back.
older anyway. Yeah, exactly. And Jose was older anyway, so he stayed out of the ring. So you'll see pictures of me taking bumps. There's pictures of me running the ropes. There's pictures of me in the ring, hands on, whatever, doing stuff. And so that's what we did, man. We just we treated the guys. It was a Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy. It wasn't the Shawn Michaels dungeon. It was we weren't Stu. None of us were Stu Hart or anything like that. So we just, Shawn wasn't known as a brute. He was just known as a very finesse type of guy and stuff. And so that's what we did. We just made guys run the ropes and drill, just normal drills, and then we taught them how to do, wrestling stuff. And as time went by, some guys just like, I can't do this, and they would quit. I ran Shawn School like in 2000, 2001. And so now we're in the 2024, and I still get guys that were from those groups that are like, "Hey man, I'm working for FedEx now, and I'm a district manager, and all the stuff that I learned at Shawn School, thanks to you, it's really helped me a lot, with my job." And so we taught them some kind of discipline or whatever. I get guys today that call or email me or send me a message. It's a lot of fun, man. It's you see guys grow and you see the lights turn on in their head as they're doing stuff. Um, and then, when I have guys like we just had a clinic with Bobby Fish yesterday, and that went really well. Um, you see guys, I don't know who Bobby Fish is. I don't associate with them. The first time I actually met him was yesterday, but he's repeating the same things that I'm telling them. So that a light bulb goes off in their head, like, oh, Rudy kind of knows what he's talking about. So I mean, training is great, man. I enjoy it. It's what I wanted to do when I was younger, except in the football arena. Uh, but I mean, I love it. I can't see myself I can't see myself working at Walmart. You know,
No.
um, this is great, man. I come across a lot of good guys, and they all have stars in their eyes. They all want to be the next Triple H or whoever, and you see them realize that it's not that simple.
No, no, it definitely isn't. Why do you feel passionate about training people and helping out in your community?
I can't answer that. The community part is, I guess that's just the way I was raised. Um, my I don't I've never really brought this up. My mother could not have kids. Um, and so and I said I have three brothers and another sister. So they were all through adoption. And so for a time period when I was younger, like 3 or 4 years, I think, my parents were foster parents, and And what that is if anybody out there doesn't know, is you take care of kids that came from broken homes, maybe, and that's that, as much as I hate saying this, some kids were born, with a birth defect of some type, and the parents didn't want them, through no fault of that, of that baby. The parents didn't want them. Like, we had several kids that came through with the cleft lip thing, where their lip is
Mhm.
attached, and the mom and dad rejected them. So my parents were always helping out. Again, like I said, we weren't wealthy people, but my parents were always helping out, and that um brushed off on me. And so I feel like, I drive down the street and I see homeless people, and I see, you go to Walmart and you see the mom with three kids in the shopping cart, and the kids have no shoes on, and the mom's, dressed, like heck or whatever. And meanwhile, me and my wife and our daughter and my kids, whatever, we're, if I have a tear on a shirt, I either throw it away or I fix it. But something, because I have that option.
Mhm.
But some people don't, and I feel bad for them, because I live a completely different life than they do. And I've never, again, like I said earlier, I've never been in that situation. And I don't, I hope, I wish I wish nobody would have to go through that. But, and then and you go to other countries, like, all you got to do, for, like, I'm in San Antonio, so 200 miles down the road is Mexico. All you do is cross the bridge, and you're in a third world country. And so the things that we complain about here, man, we have it so good. You know, um, a lot of us don't realize it, but when you go out in the street and you see people struggling and stuff, I hate. I immediately think back to, man, I may, even I complain about, man, I wish this, I wish that. But when I see some of these people that are struggling, then it brings me back to, I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate. Um, Especially with the with the lack of education that I have, and the route that I took. Some of these people that are out there, I'm sure they're good people, just bad break here and there. And so whatever I can, man, again, like I said, I credit my upbringing. Whenever I can, I'll try and help somebody out. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do, pay it forward for the next generation.
Sure, exactly, exactly.
Well, Rudy, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you, and it means a lot to me and my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. So I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. Where can people
Hey,
find more about you?
I'm on Facebook, Rudy Boy Gonzalez, Rudy Gonzalez. I'm on Instagram, under Texas Wrestling Academy or Texas Wrestling, and then on the X or Twitter or whatever it's called, um, under Texas Wrestling Academy also. Um, but let me just throw this in here real quick, man. It's great that you have the platform that you do, and doing what you're doing, and making, bringing the awareness out that, we all live in these, in the times that are unpredictable and tough. And sometimes we forget that, there's other things going on out there, and you bring awareness to that. I really, I enjoyed doing this, man. I really did.
I appreciate hearing that. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much again.
Yes,
You're
sir. You
and
take.
you're and you're more than
Oh,
welcome you're more than welcome to come back on the show too.
thank you. I appreciate it, Stanley.
A- All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.